Are you an ambitious professional looking for that missing edge in your performance? Discover what elite professionals already know. Happiness isn't just a feeling, it's your most powerful competitive advantage. Join me on Tuesday, March 26th for an exclusive live webinar where I'll share the neuroscience behind why happiness drives exceptional business results, practical techniques to rewire your brain for enhanced focus and resilience, transformative mindset shifts that you can implement immediately. Imagine leading with unshakable confidence, inspiring your team, and performing at your peak, all while preventing burnout. Head over to Linktree/YourThoughtLife to register today and transform your leadership journey with the power of happiness. Your team and your future self will thank you. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Your Thought Life podcast. I am your host, Michael Anderson. Today we're going to be taking a look at the mindset of great storytellers. As we dive into this specific skill, I just really need for you to have an appreciation for the power that you can have if you can move or captivate or inspire an audience. It can be a very transformational tool that you can leverage for a whole lot of circumstances that you find yourself faced with. Whether you're a leader or an entrepreneur or a small business owner or someone who's in the tech space and you're at the top of your game, you're presenting to upper management and boards and committees and forums, this most certainly is going to be a fantastic set of tools that you can add to your arsenal to really help you with your vision and to mastering the elements that are necessary for you to be a great storyteller. Should also be noted, though, that storytelling isn't just about spinning tales. I know that's what most people think about when they think about storytelling. This is different. This is about seeing the world through the lens of narrative and using narrative to share something with someone that you don't want them to forget. You're able to then turn everyday moments into compelling stories that people can relate to. When people can resonate with your message, you're able to win them over. It's the persuasive component that is naturally present in storytelling. And guess what? We're going to share with you the top 4 or 5 elements that you need to know to perfect this. Some time ago, I was teaching some young people this specific principle in a leadership forum of sort. At the end, one of them said to me in so many words, well, I don't really understand why this is such a big deal, why it really matters. And what I shared with him is that stories are an innate part of every single one of us. In fact, our ancestry, they were absolutely huge on stories. There's parts of our brain that have been so developed, and that's a direct result of stories. When somebody shares a personal story, you instinctively, without even knowing it, just lean into it. You relate to it, and you just have this capability somehow, some way to just remember it. That has to do with the evolution of the brain. Did you not know that leaders who use storytellers, and this is what I share with the class, leaders who use storytelling are 22 times more likely to have their message remembered than those who rely on facts alone? I opened up and told you about a profound advantage. Imagine for just a moment being 22 times more likely to have someone remember what you have said. Well, therein lies a tremendous amount of power. Take Steve Jobs, for an example. When he introduced the iPhone way back yonder, I don't know, 2005, 6 or 7, something like it was way on back there. He didn't just list its features, family. He told a story about the reinvention of how communication would be going forward. He painted a very vivid picture of a world where your phone and your music and your internet all could coalesce on one device. And that story captured imaginations and changed the way that all of us coming up in that time thought about technology. Stories engage logic and emotion. You want to get something into somebody's head and heart for long-term retention? Tell them a story. You want to make an impression that is lasting? Tell them a story. These are some of the reasons why storytelling is so powerful and why it matters even today. Now let's get to the good stuff. What does it mean to think like a storyteller? I'm sure that's been rumbling around in your head. We already said it's not about telling tales. It's about taking information and packaging it into a narrative using the story format to get your ideas across and retained. The first concept here is seeing challenges as a hero's journey. We're not focusing now on the things that occurred that maybe would be perceived as a setback or a failure. In fact, we just talked about those two topics in the previous episode. I would encourage you to take a listen. We're taking that and doing what we said in that previous episode, and now we're changing how we view it. We're changing how we package it. Instead of seeing it from a negative lens, we're looking at it from a very positive lens. Then you think about the classic journey of a hero. The hero faces an obstacle. The hero learns some lessons. He then has an opportunity to redo with practical application of the learning, and then he emerges stronger. He gets the girl, or he finishes the task. When you take the situation and package it in such a way where we don't capitalize on the pain points, but rather stepping them through a set of logical events that take them on a journey that showcase the learning and the outcome of the learning, that's your first principle, the hero's journey. The second is to look at tapping into emotion. Where is it here that you can change your pace, you can change your tempo, where you can get data that informs, that moves the person emotionally? This is how we draw them in further to the narrative, further into the storyline. The best storytellers focus on the emotion and allow that to build until it's time to emerge as the winner, the prevailer, the conqueror. When you're tapping in to emotion, let's say you're just pitching a new product. Instead of just listing its features, and you would deploy the same tactics that Steve Jobs did, you could tell a story about how it solves a real world problem for its customer base. Airbnb doesn't just sell accommodations, they sell the idea of belonging anywhere. That's profound. That's something that the people who are looking for a temporary residence can feel. The emotional connection makes the story that much more compelling. Now we're going to wrap this with the third pillar or the third principle, which is crafting a clear arc. Every great story follows a structure: beginning, the problem; middle, the struggle; the end, the resolution. Whether you're pitching an idea or leading a team or structuring a message, or you're trying to get some key point across to someone or some entity, you want to ensure that you maintain engagement. Here's an example. If you're presenting a new strategy to your team, start with the problem you're solving, then describe the challenge that you face, and then finish up by revealing the solution and its impact. Think through now with this framework how you can then introduce emotion at the right times to really amplify this, and how this tucks in very, very nicely with what we said in the very first principle, right? Seeing the challenges as a hero's journey. Package this together, then you will have for yourself a very, very well-defined, known good storyteller's mindset. If you thought that was cool, check this out. I'm going to give you some additional actionable steps that you can use to further refine this process so that you can make it your own. And as I'm thinking about this, the first few times that I had to present when I was a director, I started presenting to boards and I started getting in front of larger groups. I found that this specific set of tactics that we're getting ready to go into next were paramount in allowing me to emerge from those talks, from those presentations, from those briefs as one who had mastery of his content. Moreover, most executives, when they are being presented to, they can't stand people who read from their slides. By covering all of the points, all the critical points in the story and making it that meaningful, you show up differently than most, and you really, really set yourself apart. Do keep that in mind also. Here's some actionable steps that I want you to also consider as you're beginning to strategize how you're going to put this into play in your life. Identify your signature stories. What's that mean? It means you're going to be reflecting on moments in your life and career that taught you valuable lessons. There's nothing more powerful than sharing candidly and vulnerably to a degree to make these stories that much more profound. This is also a great way for you to introduce that emotion that we were talking about. You can also use the power of contrast, where you highlight struggles before victories, not highlighting them so much that you take the positive energy away that you've been building, but enough for them to understand that you were faced with some significant friction. And that friction, those obstacles, caused you to have to do some things differently, to think about some things differently. As a result of you doing this specific step, you're naturally going to split stream emotional engagement into this process, and you're going to build the anxiety for, oh my God, what's going to be next? As you take this in, you have to know also that practice is what's going to make you good at this. Many of the techniques that we share with you week over week are presented to you so that when you find yourself having the need to do something, we have given you the tools that you would require to get through whatever the situation is. But more often than not, they all require you to put some time in, for you to take the key points, the principles, and put them to work. This is what we call practice. This is what we call rehearsal. Going over it and over it and over it until you're able to see all of the logical links. Then the final step in this beautiful situation is refining your delivery. How do you do that? Record yourself telling the story. Listen for clarity. Check out your pacing. Do you have the ebbs and the flows in the story? Are you conveying to the audience or in your recording the absolute pain points that we talked about? Are we also interjecting personalized stories? Is there an emotional component? Are we building the energy toward that resolution and the impact? These are the subtle cues that you should be looking for to make sure that you've crafted a very good story. And pay attention to your tone, your pauses, and your emphasis. As many small tweaks as you can get in here, the better your presentation and your story and its outcome will be when you complete it. As we prepare to wrap, I just want to remind you that when you embrace storytelling, you become a more effective leader. And leader has numerous connotations. It doesn't have to be just someone who has a team underneath them. If you're male and you have a family, you're a leader. If you're a lady and you're head of household, you are a leader. It doesn't matter where these things play out, they can still be incredibly beneficial. Anyone endeavoring to be more engaging as a communicator and to have more influence and to be memorable must master this skill set. I trust that you now have a blueprint that you can move forward with that will help you to put together a strategy that works precisely for you, that you too can be a fantastic storyteller. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Do consider subscribing and leaving us a rating or review, and feel free to connect with us through our Linktree app. You'll be able to find that in the show notes. I do want you to know that you are enough, you can do it, and you are uniquely equipped to realize your goals. Until next time, take care and keep practicing your storytelling.